Day. Call the Plan Commission. Call the Plan Commission meeting to order for January 18th, 2024. 17th. Well, it says Tuesday, so I compensated for that.
All right.
17th, 2024. We'll have a roll call, please.
Angie Holt. Here. Frank Pulver.
Here.
Bill Van Wy.
Here.
Sandy Harrison. Here. Glenn Crawford. Suzanne Davis.
Here.
Jason Carnahan.
Here.
Bill Hartman.
Here.
Elisa Rogers. Michael Makarich.
Here. That's close.
Andrew Cruz.
Here.
Chris Gallmer. And Meredith Wright. Here.
Had a chance to meet Meredith on their way in. You'll be voting her in for secretary soon. We'll do official introductions after.
Then we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now have an opportunity for someone to say a word of prayer, if they would so choose. Okay. Moving on to our election of officers. We'll do the president and vice president, and then we've already pretty much have Meredith in as our secretary. That's just an approval. I would take opening for nominations for president.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Jason Carnahan for president.
Okay.
I'll second.
If no one has any nominations, I would take a motion to close nominations for president.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
We do just a unanimous consent, right?
That's fine, yeah.
So we have a motion for Jason Carnahan to be president. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, I get to stay in the same seat. Don't have to move. Now I would take nominations for vice president.
Make a motion for Bill Van Wy.
I'll second that.
Bill, I'll help you out if you ever need it, okay?
You know, I'm also the vice president council. I shouldn't have this because when I get excited, my voice gets high.
We'll help you out.
Was there any other nominations for vice president? Would entertain a motion to close nominations for vice president.
Nominations. I make a motion to close.
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion is for Bill
Mike
Van.
won't be able to second because he's not a voting member.
Correct.
So,
Oh, okay.
sorry, Mike.
I'll second. Need the motion.
Thank you.
Someone gotta second that.
So the nomination is for Bill Van Wy to be vice president. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, Bill. You said your last name is Wright? Wright. Chris has hired Meredith Wright to be our secretary. So it's more of a, I need a motion to, I guess, approve her to be our, excuse me.
You have to
her
go through the same
Yeah.
nominations.
All right, so we're open for nominations for secretary.
I nominate Meredith Wright. Is that correct? Right.
Right.
Like you're writing.
Okay. I nominate Meredith Wright.
Second.
Any other nominations for secretary?
I move that we close the nominations.
Second. All those in favor of Meredith being our secretary signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Meredith, secretary. All right, now we need to fill our city and town representative positions again. I guess Mike was our Auburn, so we'll need an Auburn. Sandy did a lot of the other ones, and I think Frank was Garrett. So we'll take,
Bill was Ashley.
yeah, Bill was Ashley whenever, if they ever had meetings.
Or once a year.
And they've canceled most of them.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, they cancel them all the time. And right now that they have a new leadership, so I don't know, you know.
So I'll take volunteers or nominations for the Auburn spot. Suzanne, you're volunteering or nominating?
I nominate Suzanne Davis for Auburn representative.
I'll second it.
Anybody else? We good with that? We're just gonna have volunteered. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Overall, we're okay with this.
For all of them? Okay. So Suzanne
Volunteer, you're not
yeah. You're already in by speaking up. Okay, how about for Ashley?
I'll stay with
Bill, you want that big
That's
job?
only 2 miles away.
I'll do Butler, Waterloo, and Hamilton again.
Okay.
They're really close to the house.
I'd do Garrett.
Okay.
I'd entertain Waterloo if you want me to take one of those off your plate.
You'll do Waterloo?
I can do that for you.
Good? You were on Garrett before
Was in Garrett before.
you, that's between you guys, whoever wants to do it.
Either way, I guess. I mean, I'd do it. Frank doesn't, if he wants to step out of it.
both could have it, and then,
That'd work.
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay, so we've got volunteers for all of them. Suzanne for Auburn, Bill for Ashley, Sandy for Butler and Hamilton, Angie for Waterloo, and Bill and Frank for Garrett. I would take a nomination to accept all of those positions at once.
I motion to approve the city and town representatives as Jason outlined.
Second.
All those in favor of those current city and town representatives signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. Now we need a BZA member that currently is filled by myself. I would continue doing that, or if somebody else wants to take my spot, that's fine as well, but I'm good to do it, so.
I motion to appoint Jason to continue his representation on the BZA.
Second that.
If everybody's good with me being the BZA representative, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. So now we need an alternate. Is that just for BZA, Chris?
The alternate member for BZA can only be used in your absence per Indiana code with a conflict of interest. And then Indiana code also adds for any other reason that you're not able to attend. Jerry was that person last year, so we would need somebody new to be that alternate, and that would be only for you, not for any other member of the BZA.
Right.
Like if Jason couldn't attend, he could call this other person and say, hey, I can't attend, please.
Or let us know
be
so we
my
can get,
alternate.
so we
okay.
can get information packets to them
I
and
think
stuff.
I think I used him like once in the
Yeah.
last couple of years.
Yeah.
If anybody would like to volunteer for that position. It's not often that I don't make the meetings, but I think, like I said, I think I used him once in the last 2 years, so.
So this person would only attend the meetings as necessary, or would attend the meetings every
Only as
meeting?
necessary.
Only as necessary.
Yeah.
I nominate Angie Holt as the alternate.
I second.
All those in favor of Angie Holt being the alternate for the BZA position, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
You accept that, right? Okay.
I knew she was accepting it. And then we need somewhere between 3 and 5 plat committee members. Currently, it's what, Sandy, me, and Alicia?
Correct. And Alicia messaged me on the way in that her son had a 2-hour delay and she'd be happy to still serve on that committee. So
I'm fine with staying on there as well.
Oh, my.
And so if we need 3 or 5?
So you have to have a minimum of 3.
Right.
Or 5 at the meeting.
Right.
I'd like to have 5, just in case there's ever something happen that
Okay.
2 people can't show up. We can't do it if
Right.
there's only 2 that show up to the meeting. Indiana code says 3 or 5. Those are the first Tuesday of the month at 8:30 in the morning. I'm looking at the retirees out there.
So, yeah, so if anybody wants to join our merry month.
That made me want to join our plat committee.
Yeah, I see a few retirees here.
All right.
I could do it.
It does. We do meet every month. I mean,
Yeah, it's-
well, we didn't meet in January because of my conflict, but we do meet.
And
Every month.
It's Tuesday, first Tuesdays?
Correct. So our next meeting will be February 6th, I believe.
Sure.
Is that what it is?
It's not hard.
No.
Usually between 1 and 5 petitions.
Yeah, February 6th is our first meeting.
It's all cut and dry. Chris has everything ready. We just go through all the findings.
And we email the packets out.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not.
this is
Pretty,
6th.
pretty simple. Anyone else want to volunteer
And we
for
need-
that?
Yep,
Sorry.
you're fine. We need and one more if somebody would feel motivated to do so.
I'll volunteer.
Thank you, Suzanne.
We need a vote on that? Okay. Yeah, so the slate would be Alicia Rogers, Sandy Harrison, Jason Carnahan, Suzanne Davis, and Frank Pulver. All those in favor of those being our plat committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, we have our committees. The minutes are in your packet from our previous meeting. All you had an opportunity to review those. I would entertain a motion to approve those or amendments if you have any.
My name's spelled W-Y-E, not W-A-E-Y. Under considerable of claims.
I did these minutes, so I can't blame you.
Oh, man. Yep.
They'll be away.
Way I go.
All right.
Are there any other amendments? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve as is.
I'll second.
You mean approved with your, as amended?
Yeah, whatever.
Okay. Well, it's your name, so.
As is versus as amended, different.
Say I was never here.
We got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
Yep, yep.
I'll abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. Also in the packet was consideration for claims, or I guess on your agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve those, accept those.
I move to accept the claims as listed.
A second.
I just had a question, Chris. The software, I remember seeing that through the commissioners or something too, I think.
It's paid, so
Through the building department or something, right?
it's paid for through my department, for the GIS.
So then that's why it's in this budget too. Okay, just thought I'd ask that.
Is that for this year or is that for last year?
Sorry.
That's not the complete payment, that's just partial payment.
Pay. Off of our.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. A motion and a second to approve the consideration of claims from the previous month. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Okay. Chris, no old business? Okay.
The only thing I thought of, if anyone had any more discussion on last month.
We tried it, yeah.
Quasi-judicial, or quasi started doing that with BZA. So fairly well, I mean, it was a pretty simple BZA approval
Yeah.
anyway. Setback variance for somebody that had already built it out.
Right. But it was on a tiny lot with other tiny lots and, yeah.
City lot,
It didn't work too bad. There was a few moments of crickets, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't like I expected it might go, so it worked out okay. Yeah, you can go back and watch it.
or to save that, discussion of the video. Alrighty. The first one is something that we've seen often, and mostly as well, especially with a appraisers calling us, having questions about either what appears to be an apartment or a kitchen or bathroom or dressing area in an accessory barn. Typically, they put one in because the farmer wants to clean up before going into the house. And so, or they have a kitchenette area for workers, things like that, and asking if those items are approved. Typically, we have said as long as there's no bedrooms with a closet, that doesn't constitute a living area, we're okay with it. Appraisers have asked us for definitions on what that means. We don't have one. So I wanted to look at our accessory building and structure definition to add some language on exemptions, what would be allowed in those accessory buildings that wouldn't constitute living space. So some of it is just cleanup. On the fourth bullet down is located on the same, it said zoning lot as the primary building, and we don't have a definition for what a zoning lot is. I'm assuming it meant to be something like on the same zoning district, but sometimes zoning districts, as we talked about last meeting, if you got a 20-acre lot and back how the zoning districts were created, there was a buffer zone around places like Auburn, for instance. So you could have an R1 zoning district or an RE zoning district on half your lot and an A2 zoning district on the other half. So I just wanted to clean that up a little bit and state that it's the same parcel or lot and zoning district as the primary building. Conforms to the setback height. I took out bulk and lot coverage because we don't call it lot coverage, we call it impervious surface coverage, and other development standards or requirements. Seventh bullet down, isn't designed for human occupancy as a dwelling or commercial use, but adding in there that it may have a bathroom or kitchen, sink, or other facilities needed for sanitary purposes as long as there is health department approval. In the case of private or non-commercial telecommunication towers, we used to just have telecommunication towers, which didn't differentiate between the commercial telecommunication towers, the tall ones that are 199 feet, versus people have just private radio antennas on their property, so that those would be they're exempt from those accessory structure setbacks. So if it's a private radio antenna or you have your own telecommunication tower in your property, it would be exempt from the setback. And then the subordinate structures, typically that's considered like there's little cabinets that are in those structures, that those have to meet the accessory structure setback. That's what we do now, even though it's not in the ordinance, that those cabinets have to meet the setback requirements, but the towers themselves don't need to.
Chris, go ahead.
Yep. That thing never works for us. It's never worked for us. Yep.
So Chris, I was going to ask, is there a separate commercial telecommunications part of our UDO?
There is.
Okay.
Yep.
So this just separates
Under
out the private homeowner.
probably Article 5. Yep. This is
Homeowner or
only for
homeowner.
just private ones that are your own.
Okay.
Exemptions to accessory setback requirements. People ask us all the time, well, what about my flagpole, or what about telecommunication towers? I wanted to add some things in here that we can have as exemptions, so flagpoles, the private non-commercial telecommunication towers, antennas or other radio or cellular communications equipment, except the cabinets, freestanding chicken coops. So those would be ones that, people typically have 5 or 6 chickens in and they move them from space to space. So those wouldn't be considered accessory structures. Animal cages or runs, so those are typically sometimes attached to an accessory building. They typically don't have any sort of foundation. They're just grass or sometimes there'll be a little concrete pad for the animal to have a standing area, but they're typically just the cage. So I didn't think those needed to be part of an accessory structure. Lawn art or lawn statues, water features except recreational ponds. Those would be like those freestanding water fountains, or if waterfalls that people sometimes build a little, pond the size of this little inner area, and then they have a waterfall that comes down. It doesn't meet our recreational pond standards, but that if they want to put it next to the property line, we don't have anything now that exempts them, so adding that. And then are other items deemed exempt by the zoning administrator that is not specifically defined in the Unified Development Ordinance. That leaves it pretty open, depending on who your zoning administrator is, to allow things to be exempt. But I think that if have me here, you're probably going to have pretty good standards as to pretty good foresight and thought on what could be exempt. I'm not going to allow a small shed to be considered exempt because it's still considered an accessory structure. But that's something if you guys wanted to take out or add to what could be exempt, I'd be happy to hear that information. This is just for discussion anyway. We're not looking to approve anything today. Just things that we've seen in our office over the years that just needs a little bit of cleanup.
Chris, what if you added language, something along the lines, if the Plan Commission wanted to have that phrase in there, or other similar items, add the word similar in there, to kind of give some limitation to you on that, or future administrators?
I have a question about the word cabinet. I don't have any idea really what that is or what it's attached to and how big they are.
It houses the electrical components and whatever other components come down from the telecommunication towers. It's usually, for a commercial one, they're a pretty big size. I would say the size of the table and a little, maybe double the height, that houses more of the guts of the electrical components of that. Sometimes green, sometimes gray.
Right.
Yeah.
But then what would they be for non-commercial?
It might be like the electrical, typically they're gonna have a separate electrical box, electrical meter base. That's separate from the house or a barn. So it might be a smaller size than that, but still considered, it would still have a foundation, still would have structure components of it. That's separate than the telecommunication tower. But it's usually, they're typically right next to each other. So if you're gonna be set back 10 feet, the tower's not gonna be 10 feet from this structure.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on that? Or comments or?
Were there any items on this list that you debated whether to put it in here, or other things that you excluded from this exemption list besides the shed that you mentioned?
No, I was
Anything
trying to include
point
a
out?
lot. I was trying to include a lot of things because one thing that's hard is that when someone comes to you and it's not in the ordinance, I would love to have more than less, just because if it's in there, we can say, well, actually that's exempt, or no, that's not exempt, because it's in the ordinance. When you leave it up to interpretation, it just opens that box. But I think adding or other similar items could cover those things. And if I would have any questions, if I would say no, the petitioner or person wanting to build this can go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and request an administrative decision appeal. And so it's a decision by the zoning administrator and it's appealed to the BZA. I've never had one in the 11, 12 years I've been doing this, but that's a possibility if they, if they say, well, I want my 10 by 10 shed to be exempt, well, then they can go to the BZA and request that exemption.
Well, the idea of a shed, I mean, they used to be kind of small, but now everywhere you go, you see these humongous things that can get delivered to you, and they're almost a barn.
Yeah.
Small barn, so.
Nobody builds enough storage for themselves. It's amazing we get people that build new houses, and these are $800,000 homes with 3.5, 4-car garages, and then they come back 3 months later and say, oh, I need a pole barn that's double the size of my house because my wife doesn't like all my lawn equipment or something else in the garage. So it's funny because they build these big homes and then need these big sheds or pole barns to store stuff. It always makes me laugh. But if you're thinking about stuff at your own yards that you have, you're like, I wonder if this is exempt. Let me know by the next meeting and we can try to add that in here if we bring this forward. Okay. The next thing is probably going to be confusing for a lot of us, including me. Non-conforming lots, structures, and uses. So when our new ordinance was created and adopted in 2009, anything prior to that does not meet our UDO. So if you have a house on a skinny lot that is only 30 feet from the center of the road, it's considered a non-conforming use or grandfathered. Us planners don't like the term grandfathered. It connotates that it's still legal. It's just grandfathered. Where non-conforming is a more technical term that we like. So I wanted to change this for a while and have never had the chance to bring the discussion forward. We have had questions on what defines when a structure is abandoned. There is a property that is zoned commercial, I believe, and it's just right outside of Auburn, on the east side of Auburn, that's been for sale for a number of years. And it used to be rented as, I think they switched it to a single-family house. But nonetheless, the question came forward once on, well, and it had been abandoned for, I say abandoned, it hadn't been used as a rental for about 2 or 3 years. But utilities were still on, and they were still paying the taxes, still upkeeping the property, but nobody was using the structure for its intended purpose. And the question was, in our ordinance, we have that if a structure or if a use is abandoned for a year or more, it's then considered an illegal non-conforming. So it can't be turned back into that previous use. But there was never a definition on what defined it being abandoned. And I thought that there needed to be some clarity on what defines an abandonment of use. So I'm adding a definition to our definitions for this particular reason. A use that has not been occupied by residing in, doing business in, or what the intended use was by the time set in Article 8, which is non-conforming lots and structures and uses, shall be considered abandoned. Proof of occupancy cannot be by proof of maintenance or utility bills, payment of taxes, or similar. The zoning administrator shall determine if there has been abandonment. We can discuss this more if anyone has any opposing or similar views. But I think just because they're paying their taxes or maintaining the property like they should, doesn't mean that the use of the building is still there.
What if you added the word solely by proof of that? I don't know.
We're at.
It's kind of what you're meaning by that. Proof of maintenance or utility bills, payment of taxes. If they're paying the utility bills, that could be one part of the evidence, but that alone is not enough because
Correct.
nobody's in there.
Got you.
I don't know, that's just a thought.
So proof of occupancy cannot
solely be. by
solely
proof.
be.
Yeah,
Cannot
that
solely.
would just be one thought I had looking at it.
How do you say proof of resident, but how do you determine if they're not using it as a storage unit, even though they're not living there, if they're putting heat and stuff in it?
Yeah, so.
And the thing of it is, how do you determine, okay, they haven't been in there for 2 years, if they're not some kind of
Yeah.
remodeling it or something, but if they're storing stuff because they don't have room in their new house or something like that, how do we determine that that's deserted or?
Yep. So we allow in our ordinance private, non-commercial accessory storage buildings. So like if you had a vacant piece of property, you could build a barn on your property for your own personal storage. Now, you couldn't rent it out for people to come store their property, but you could build that for your own storage. So this could still, that would be a use that would be permitted. So it's not considered a non-conforming. But if the building has been, if they're renovating it, that's part of them bringing the property into compliance for whatever they're going to be using it for, I believe, versus it being, it's just not being used for its intended purpose or anything under the zoning, its current zoning district.
Well, also, this is maybe a little bit off topic, but if it's a grandfathered in house, can they still get permits to remodel or move or build on another section before they sold it or anything? And because there's a house in my neighborhood that.
Don't be narking on your neighbors again, Bill.
Yeah, it reminds me. Yeah, I realize that. I'd like to know what he's going to do because he only has a 200-foot by 200-foot lot, and he's got a house there. Grandfathered in, but can he? He's never been able to add on to it, and I was wondering if
you can add on as long as the expansion does not further extend your nonconformity. So if your nonconformance is a front yard setback, you can't build closer to the road to add on a 3 seasons room. You could add on to the back of the property as long as it meets the setbacks, and you could add on to the side as long as they meet the setbacks. But if they can't, and that's in here already.
Okay.
It's on page 3 under legal nonconforming structure. A1 is building expansion at the top of the page.
Yeah. I tell you this: if he builds on, he won't have a front room very often because if semi makes a short corner, he'll take that off.
Oh, we have had through the Board of Zoning Appeals people come to the BZA requesting setbacks to their front yard because they currently aren't meeting that. But with what they're wanting to expand on, one of them was an ADA ramp that he was going through a grant. You might remember this, but the ADA had to come out of the bedroom. Remember that? The grant from the VA.
Just a certain part of the house.
The grant from the VA requires it to be out of the bedroom, which was on the street side of the house. And so we had to add on to that house to get the grant. So they approved it that way. You can go to the BZA and request a variance for that, but getting outright permits, you can't just expand on that nonconformity. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Taking us off topic, Bill.
That's my job. I'm vice president.
I know. I like that it's cannot solely be by those. It is.
That's what you mean by it.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult for me to prove my point, but it would be up to the person requesting the use, or typically it's if properties are for sale. People asking, well, no one's been there for 2 years. Can I use it as this? And if it's not permitted in our UDO, we can't say yes. Now, if it's currently being used as a commercial garage or whatever, and you're buying it, you can still run it as that use. You still can't expand the nonconformity, but you could still do it in those four walls and whatever's currently being used. But I think that abandonment of use is a definition that will hopefully, if this would ever come up again, save us from getting into a little argument with the planner that was doing the homework on that project. I like definitions that refer to the article in the UDO, because it's oftentimes, if you don't, there's a definition there, but you don't know where it is in the UDO. And for me, it's easy because I use it all the time. But for somebody that doesn't read the UDO or is learning it for the first time, if you look up the definition of a legal nonconforming or any of those other four, you don't know where it is in the UDO. So I think I just wanted to add where it's located in the UDO. So adding unless otherwise noted in Article 8, that at least triggers them to go look at Article 8 and have that information as part of their learning tool if they're looking this up on their own. The next thing that I wanted to discuss is when a non-conforming use could become a legal conforming use. Currently, we don't have anything that allows that commercial garage, I don't know why I'm using that, but I am, but allows that commercial garage to be on the property for a number of years. There's never been any issues. We've never caught it. There's never been disputes with neighbors. But then next thing you know, 20 years later, a new neighbor comes in and they're upset that Bob Smith is running a commercial garage next to the property that they just bought. They never came in and got permits or never came in and went through the approval process to allow the use, but they've been there for 20 years. We've had this come up in the past, and it's actually somebody that works on small engines like lawnmowers and stuff. Been working on them for a number of years, 15 or 20, and a new neighbor has come in and complained, and it's hard for me to say, well, you've been doing it for 20 years, nobody's noticed, and now, we're potentially going to shut them down because they haven't gone through the approval process. So, and they could easily go to the Plan Commission and we could do a use or could do a rezone or a use variance. Typically, these are going to be on properties that are zoned agricultural. There's a house, and then this is their job. They go to their barn, and they work on small engines. It's probably everywhere in the county. A lot of places in the county, not everywhere. So I wanted to add language to this that changes it from an illegal nonconforming to a legal nonconforming after a number of years. On page 2 at the bottom is where I proposed adding this language so adding a letter C of what determines when a status changes from legal nonconforming to conforming. The status of an illegal nonconforming or legal nonconforming structure and or use may change to, I need to read this, may change or become a conforming structure and or use if the structure and or use has been in continual use or existence for 20 years. For example, a parcel that was a small engine or mower repair shop that may be an illegal nonconforming use shall become a legal conforming use if the use is 20 years or older. If the use is 20 years or newer, it shall be deemed a violation of the Unified Development Ordinance. That 20 years, I thought hard about what amount of time do we want to give these type of uses to become conforming. I think 5 years is too less of a year. I think 10 was appropriate, but I went longer. So we could have discussion on what that time should be. I mean, people that have been doing business for, 10 10 or 15 years have no idea they're in a violation just because people just don't know. You know, and you can try to educate till your blood's coming out your ears, but it's not gonna, they still don't know. So what amount of time is appropriate for these type of businesses to become conforming?
Okay, I have a question. If somebody's been
Make
doing
sure your mic,
that,
oh, thanks.
if somebody's been doing that for 18 years and a new neighbor comes in and files a complaint, can they go to the BZA?
They can. They can. The people that are running the business could do a use variance to the BZA.
Okay.
And I would use this as part of the staff report's justification for recommending approval, is that the Plan Commission has adopted a language that allows this to become a use in 2 years. You know. But yeah, it's hard because, and luckily, one of them that we also got another complaint on has been a business that has been running for before our UDO, so that was 2009, and I think they were in business in like 2004. So it's considered a legal non-conforming now, but they fall under the legal non-conforming. So they know they can't expand the business. You know, they have tax records back 25 years ago to allow them to stay. But this would cure that particular instance. They'd be considered a legal conforming.
I'm just curious, as
Yeah.
far as the court system, how would they view that 20 year if it's challenged? Somebody comes in, 19, they go to the judge and say, hey, come on, they just picked this 20 years, I've been in it 19, I just want it to be conforming.
Yeah.
So I just wonder how, via the legal process, how confident do we
Yeah.
feel about it standing up to that?
Well, I think with zoning and home rule, we would be allowed to put this in here. It might be a good idea, Andrew, to check with, and I can check with other municipalities on if they have anything on their non-conforming. We did in Cass County and Logansport when I worked there. If they were threatening suit, I would probably say it would be cheaper for you to go to the BZA than file a lawsuit, because if we win, you're gonna have to pay our court fee, or our attorney fees, but,
Just on the hypothetical.
yeah, I think,
Good question.
that's a great question.
I think it would be allowed. I think it would be enforced, at least sitting here today, looking at this. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't enforce it, because it was illegal prior to, I mean, assuming you guys would approve either 15 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, it was all illegal prior to that, and you guys are just granting a little bit more legal to a grandfathered type situation. I don't think they'd have much of a complaint, because if they disagree with the time period, then it's all illegal.
Correct,
So if they disagree with what you would be deciding today, it'd be worse for them,
yeah.
in that sense, I think. But
Right.
that's a good
Yeah.
question. I think it would be
I'll reach
enforceable.
out to my peers and see what they say, but I think we'd be okay.
In the law, there's definitely an idea of, I guess latches would be a word, or sitting on your rights, not enforcing whatever rights you might
Right.
have, maybe as neighbors or something like that. And so if somebody lets something go for 10 years and doesn't complain about it, that's a defense in the law in general, not necessarily specifically planning and zoning, but in the law, if you sit on your rights for 10 years or something, then you might lose your rights to something because you waited too long to enforce them. So this is sort of within that legal
Yeah.
tradition of giving some timeline to, if the neighbors don't care that you have a small engine repair shop for 20 years, then they don't care, and they've sat on their rights maybe to complain.
Another question, the last UDO was 2009,
Well, our current UDO.
current.
Right, before that, it was just considered the county master plan, and it was,
But right now, we're at 15 years past the last date.
you're right.
Would that be a good number to put in there?
Could be. Could be. Since we're doing it now, if we do it now.
If we did it now?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the 20 years, I just didn't know what seemed appropriate. And I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that as, as, I'm just thinking if I lived out there and my neighbor was doing this and it was 10 years and I'm trying to sell and then a potential buyer comes and doesn't want to see it, doesn't like it, I don't know. I think we need something because I think there's what Andrew just stated about whatever it was, sitting on your
Latches,
rights.
sitting on your rights.
Got you.
Yes.
Is there law on how long that is?
I haven't had to research that issue for any case recently, but I think it's a judgment call to
Okay.
some extent.
Okay.
It's not like, there are statutes of limitations for certain things. If you're in an auto accident, there's a statute that says you got 2 years to file a suit.
Okay.
But this is sort of different than that.
Yeah. I didn't know if there was a. Sorry, Bill.
I was going to say, I was just going to agree with her. I thought 15 years was plenty.
Okay.
And because you're going from a different, it was a master plan, then you went to a DO, then we're trying to redo it. Now, if we'd redo it and get it all together, and we want to go back to 20 years, but since we've done this 15 years ago, and I don't know if some of the ruling, some of these changes were made at that 2009 deal that's different than what they call the county master plan, because that might have been.
A lot of things were different. So we went from 7 or 8 zoning districts to 24.
Yeah, because then you have to do the research back there, and
I
maybe
know.
they were all right at that time under that plan,
Yeah.
even though they kind of cut corners.
Yeah. Well, we've had even people who've gone through the rezone process. It was the
Several people. I
small
think, have
engine
done
repair
that.
shop. I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was just south of Waterloo, maybe. But that went through the rezone process, and when we redid our UDO, it got zoned to a residential district, and then they came to the plan commission because they were trying to sell.
Right.
The appraiser and the bank would not give a loan to the new buyers because of the zoning, because they couldn't do the use. So we had to clean, and that was just one of those kind of cleanup zoning changes that we had to do on probably something that was our fault to begin with, because they went through the proper channels prior to 2009, and we didn't look back to what those other zoning districts, what they changed it to. So,
Remember, we had that same issue with the tool shop in Spencerville.
yes, that's right.
Exact same situation.
Yeah.
They went for a business loan.
Yep.
And found out that they were zoned residential.
That's the one I was talking about.
Yes.
Yep, it's Spencerville, not Waterloo.
And they'd been there for 50 years.
Yeah, yeah. So no, and the building would have to take extensive renovation to make it into any sort of residential. You mean,
yeah.
better demolishing it than doing something else with it. So,
Yeah.
and it was never going to be developed as residential with how much work and money. You're not supposed to use money as an excuse here, but how much work and money it would take to make that property a residential property. Just would never, with the driveways coming in and the parking lot area and all that, it just wouldn't have gotten done.
Well, we keep finding all the houses that are in industrial and commercial.
that too.
We keep finding all those that
Yeah.
homeowner discovers they don't have insurance if their house gets destroyed or whatever. and Can't get a mortgage, and we keep finding stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I agree, I think the 15-year, at least there's some good grounds for basis for defending that number,
Yeah.
going back to the last.
Back to our, yeah. And we did that, if you guys remember, when we created the plat committee. We changed our parent parcel date. The parent parcel date used to be, if it was a parent parcel on June 21st of 1965. Well, have any of you tried to research the plat books back here? Back to 19, I mean, it's nearly impossible to figure out if a property was a parent parcel in 1965. So we changed that to be more in line with our UDO on that January 1st, 2009 date of being the parent parcel. So this would be similar-ish to that. I like the 15 years if you guys are okay with that too. Okay. The rest on page 2, again, I just added, unless otherwise noted in the article, legal non-conforming structures, and I'll change that to 15 years or newer. Just for your information, the next article allows or gives authority to when a building can be expanded if it's a legal non-conforming, and again, as long as they aren't increasing their non-conformity, they can do that. So for the example that's there, it can be expanded in an area as long as the new addition does not exceed the maximum height or is otherwise in compliance with the UDO. So if it's not just the height standard, but if it exceeds its setbacks, it wouldn't be able to do that. But building exterior alterations, we obviously want buildings to be maintained, so they are obviously able to maintain what's there. We just don't want whatever the building's nonconformity is not increased by that alteration. So if that alteration would be a building expansion in height and, I don't know, something crazy, we've never had it yet, but an interior alteration, we obviously want them to repair the interior, so that's not regulated by our UDO. And then building relocation, we allow a building to be relocated if it decreases the legal nonconformity of the relocation. Legal nonconforming structure provisions, those are very similar to what's already there. Didn't change anything under loss of legal nonconforming structure. That is where I believe it says abandonment of use. It's condemned structures. It's in there somewhere, and skimming it, I can't find it, of course. I should have highlighted it. That structure, so it'd be under use, legal nonconforming use. I'll find it and get it to you guys next meeting. Nothing else really changed there. Again, on page 4, I'll change that from 20 years to 15 years. Abandonment of use, it's highlighted on page 5. The thing that says see definition, so loss of legal nonconforming use status. So that's where it has the abandonment of use for 1 year or more, except when government action impedes access to the premises. It shall lose its legal nonconforming status. So again, there was no way to determine what that abandonment of use was or what the Plan Commission can use as reasons for a use to be abandoned. So that definition, I think, is important to have in there. Are there any questions on legal nonconforming lots, structures, or uses? Anyone want to complain on their neighbor?
Just Bill.
Kidding. Just kidding.
Our new thing is, I got 2 neighbors. They gotta put stakes all the way along.
Oh, for their, where their property is?
Yeah, well,
right of way.
Because I'm not pulling over and stopping with my tractor and the car's coming. You've heard my two complaints.
I've got them.
One neighbor said, what they said, there's too many cars going in there.
Okay. Let's get
You've already been out there, and she's not off the record.
So I'll bring those forward in the coming months. I've got my list of things that I've shown you all. Bill, I'll actually get you a list because what was that? In November or October, I gave everyone a list of the proposed UDO amendments that need done. And typically it's going to be, you know, a lot of it's in the same article, but there's multiple changes to make. So we'll just power through those things right now. We don't have much on the Plan Commission agenda as public hearings, but we do need to start thinking about our comprehensive plan rewrite and doing a request for proposals. Another thing that I kind of thought about starting to do in the spring, we would typically write an article for the newspaper about, you're thinking about, it's getting warm out there, you're thinking about adding a pole barn, or you want to do a shed or a pond, permits are required. I know that like Alicia does monthly articles, someone from Soil Water does monthly articles, and I asked the newspaper if we'd be able to, as the planning department, do monthly articles on kind of just very broad topics, but at least get some education out there to people who read the newspaper, to broaden their knowledge on at least the county-wide planning and zoning that we do. And typically it's going to focus on topics that people ask a lot about, and you know, building permits, mobile homes, addressing we've had issues with. You know, the zoning maybe kind of focus on development standards, maybe not so much non-conforming uses, because it just gets into too much, you get into the weeds on that, and it's too confusing for people to understand. But so you guys will start seeing those come out, probably first one in early February, but I'm gonna try to write one once a month. And there was something else, but I don't remember what it was that I had. Oh, I'm working on our annual report for the Plan Commission. Well, Plan Commission, Building Department, our department's annual report. We've had less permits this year and fees are a little down, but we've had more Plan Commission files this year than and more Board of Zoning Appeals cases this year than last. So, but I'll work on that and get that to everybody, either the next meeting or I'll just shoot it out via email to everybody so you can take a look. It's just kind of interesting to have. I did it last year, skipped one year during COVID because we didn't have any meetings, but I'll get that out to people. And I will also get our list updated when commissioners make their appointment for our other member on the 22nd. Is you guys doing that on the 22nd? Okay. When that gets done, I'll get our 2024 meeting member list updated. And Meredith, thank God, is checking our website, and somebody that was that's not been on BZA for, I don't know, maybe a year. Oops, I didn't change them. She caught that and made that change. So, yeah.
I have a question, and when we did a roll call, I didn't hear Jerry Yoder's name. Is Jerry Yoder no longer on the Planning Commission?
So his term ended on December 31st of 2023, and there's been discussion since early December with commissioners on either reappointing him or getting a new member, and that vote is going to be January 22nd. during the commissioners' meeting. So his term ended, so he can't attend, he could attend the meetings, but can't be a voting member until he would be reappointed.
And he's still eligible to be reappointed.
I'm sorry?
He is still eligible to be reappointed. Not that he's off, he's still eligible.
Okay.
Kind of in limbo. He's in waiting.
Yeah.
He might be back, he might not.
And how long has he been on the planning commission?
20-some years.
It's a long time.
I'd have to look at the year dates, but.
I'm curious, who else has been on? Sandy, you've been on for a while. Bill, I don't know how long you've been on, or Frank, I think.
I think I've been on 8 years. Whenever,
You've only been on since you've been on council.
yeah, but I've been on council for 12 years. But see, I replaced Larry Moffler off the council.
That was before my time, okay,
Yeah, Clinton was still
yeah.
deal, and I think it's been at least 8 years since.
When I started here in November was your full first year.
Yeah.
January to November, to December.
Yeah,
So that was
so, yeah.
2016.
Yeah, Larry decided he did not want to keep coming in at nights and stuff, so.
And Sandy is on by township trustee representative, so the township trustees appoint her, vote her
Yes.
in as the
Representative.
township trustee rep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on a council.
How many years has that been?
Well, I started with when Clinton Hour was director.
Have to
And I
look.
think 2015, I think I started.
Okay. And Frank is a citizen member, as well as you, Suzanne, Angie, and then whoever would get appointed.
By
About 8 years
extension.
ago.
Jason's by the county extension
Peter
board
Knight.
because of Alicia Rogers' appointment.
And then,
might
Frank,
be
how long
longer.
have you been on?
6 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Might be
So-
longer than that.
Help me here, if his term ended on the 31st, there's nothing done prior to that, or is it, this has to go to the commissioners to make that at the January meeting? Because you meet every Monday, is that correct?
Every other Monday this
Every
year,
other
starting
Monday.
this year. Yeah.
Okay,
My second is our next meeting, next
okay,
coming
all right.
Monday.
all right. I was just, he wasn't there,
Yeah.
Hi, Mike.
and he's always there. So. Nothing personal.
Oh, you meant there, here.
Yeah, there.
I didn't see the.
Yeah, he was
okay,
always there.
Gotcha. Yep, so they'll let me know what that is.
Is there any reports from the liaisons to the cities and towns or anybody else?
Well, the last meeting, I talked about the Garrett meeting. And I've talked to some other people about that new business. It's really, really substantial, tremendous substantial. Of course, as I said, Garrett gets the businesses and we get fast food joints, so.
Is that within the city limits?
It's in their UDO,
It will be, or is.
or I said, not
It is.
EUDO, it's in their ETA.
EDA.
It's in the south of on Walt Fuller Drive, 76 acres, $400 million project.
Did they talk about how much power that's going to take?
Well, I personally, I think that could be a problem for Garrett because they're pretty stretched the way it is. But I talked to Pat Kleeman afterwards, and he doesn't seem to have a problem with it, but the process is basically steam. So, still you gotta create steam, so. the thing that concerned me afterward, when they started talking about bag houses, I get a little nervous. Just from, I sold dust collection. I know how bag houses work, and they don't work if you don't maintain them. And so if you've got to have a multiple functional bag house, there's a reason for that. So, but they're talking about 100+ jobs at extremely good wages. If it is a steam operation, it won't be as much of a health risk as it could be. But they're downstream from Metal X and what have you. They get the separated product and then they process it from that point. So you don't have all of the burn off, and it's a great opportunity for the area, that's for sure. For Garrett in general, that's a gold star. And Fort Wayne didn't want it. Really? So, good deal. Good for DeKalb County.
Butler had a meeting on the 8th, and they passed a zoning ordinance for a staging area at the end of R.E. Jones Road and County Road 30 for RV staging. It'll be fenced in, low lighting, and it'll be 9.5 acres. They purchased, it's a HTIW Properties LLC. They purchased 44 acres. The staging area will be 9.5 acres. And that's what it'll be fenced in. And they passed it, and everyone agreed it'll be fine because it'll have a gate entry. It'll employ no one, and it'll just be a drop-off pickup point. And they were happy with that. And they've also applied for a READY grant for $15 million for Bond Aluminum, and that's a really bad site for, I guess it's pretty polluted. So that's why the grant is required. They're trying to clean that Bond aluminum site up, and once it gets cleaned up, the city owns it, and they're trying to clean it up to bring in something else. So that's what Butler's working on. And then I went to a meeting at Waterloo, and they had a rezone for triplex, and their secretary, I guess she's a secretary, she has passed the grant writing, and she is going to be applying for a Okra grant for economic redevelopment. So they're trying to get grants for Waterloo. And that's where Waterloo sits. So they're working on stuff too. Andrew, is Renee the secretary?
She's the secretary for the Plan Commission meeting, so
Well,
she's the town clerk treasurer.
Clerk treasurer.
She's the elected clerk
Okay.
treasurer.
Okay,
Yep.
she's elected.
But she does the secretary work for
For
all the meetings, taking the
Okay.
recordings and making the minutes.
But she is an elected.
Elected clerk
official.
treasurer.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a quick question. These legally have to be mailed out, or can they be emailed out?
Typically mailed them just because we've not had everyone's email address, but we can email them out if you would prefer.
Does anyone have a preference, or, I don't want to create more
We
work
prefer
for
to do
you
one
all.
or the other, just
Yeah,
because
sure,
it's,
Well, don't you email the plat committee?
That's all email.
I can have the planning commission emailed.
okay. We prefer to have them emailed?
I'm fine with that.
We can make 3 or 4 extra copies just to have if anybody wants them, but then, and you're free to bring your laptop too if you'd want to, and yeah, open that up, or your tablet, to meetings, and let me know. I mean, downstairs, you should all be able to bring your cell phones in anyway, because you're on the plan
Right.
commission. So, if you want to bring we can get you extra phone cords or whatever to hook up to the internet, so you're not dialing into AES's sometimes reliable internet. But yeah, you can do that. That'd be great if we could do that.
Email's okay for me too. You don't
Yeah.
have to deliver the package.
Okay.
You can just email them.
Awesome.
I would prefer email.
Okay. And we do post it on the website too, but we can, if the packet is too big, we might just send you the link to the website. If we ever have something that's a larger file, I don't know, our plat committees, when we have 4 or 5 cases, doesn't get too big, but you know, with the solar stuff, if we had to put that in an email, it might be too large, so.
Right.
But just, yeah, we'll see how that works. Great, awesome. I have all your emails anyway.
Is our
Make
next
sure.
meeting at 8:30 in the morning too? Are we switching to 8:30 in the morning?
No.
If there's no public
If
hearing.
there's no public hearings, I personally would prefer to have a morning meeting, so I'm not coming in at night for discussion, but that's up to the plan commission to make that decision.
One reason I say something, and he might be able to comment more than I can, is that way we don't have to have our Jack or someone from IT be here to help if we're recording and airing everything. It's better for them if we're here in the morning than at night. It don't make me any difference,
Yeah.
but I just want to, I just
If we
was
do have
curious.
public hearings, I have asked that Jack be here,
Yeah.
or at least
Yeah.
be on notice that if something doesn't work, especially during a public hearing, I want to make sure that we are able to live stream. But that's up to the plan commission to decide if they'd rather prefer morning meetings or evening meetings, or instead of 7 o'clock, I think, what time's Auburn's? 4 o'clock?
As far as the plan committee?
Yeah. 6, okay. Is BZA earlier in the day? I don't know either.
They changed those to Wednesdays, I think.
Did they?
I think I just saw that on Auburn's website yesterday, and they used to be on the 4th Tuesday at 6.
The BZA or the plan?
The
commission?
BZA.
Okay.
But it said Wednesday, so I have to check.
Yeah, it's up to you all to decide if you'd prefer one or the other. I mean, I've not had issues with texting you guys and saying, hey, we have nothing for public hearings, if you'd prefer to meet for discussion. And there's not been really any issues. Glenn's the only one that would prefer it to be evenings, because he tries to get his staff going in the morning and then goes and does his personal job. But, if I've ever needed Glenn to be here, he's been here in the morning too. But for this stuff, I'm not worried if he's here or not.
He's attended a lot better than Mike has.
But if you have a petition, maybe some of the petitioners couldn't come at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and that's why that's why if there has been,
Yeah.
like when we bring these forward for public hearings, I'll do those at 7 o'clock at night. So if members of the public want to show up for these text amendments, they
I thought you
can.
were talking about doing all of them at 8:30, and I think that could cause some problems.
Yeah, it could. I mean, if we had a project that seemed to be controversial one way or the other, had a lot of people speaking out for it or against it, then I think we would move it to a night meeting anyway, just to allow them to come. But again, judgment of the zoning administrator or plan commission could change when the person that's sitting in the
Right.
staff seat changes.
Right.
But yeah, I'm fine with keeping it how it is, and we just are able to come at 8:30 in the morning if there's nothing to really have on public hearing dockets. Cool.
Are there any comments from the public that's in attendance? Nothing. And then I think that's all we had, so I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second?